Excellent. Well, welcome everyone to part two of 4 days rather, 4 ways, 4 days. This is part two of the first day of our sessions here, and we're definitely going to talk to you about an important topic today regarding resumes. We kind of propose that question to each of you today. Is a resume necessary? And regardless of what phase and stage you are in the resume process, this is something that has evolved over the course of history, and it truly is embedded in the way that we go through the job search process. So it is I would say, very important, piece of document that is needed in the search. So let me go ahead and bring up my PowerPoint process that sort of just begins to answer that question here for us. So we'll start from the beginning. And is a resume necessary? And actually, just want to make sure you guys don't see my screen yet. So let me go ahead and share that screen for you as well. There we go, folks. All right, so we're going to start from the beginning. We're just going to move everyone down here. Perfect. So without question, a resume is truly necessary, regardless of market interest and your market conditions. We have to have a resume. It's your sales pitch. It's your marketing pitch. It's the first thing an employer sees before they even get to know you. So you've heard of the statement before: a first impression is a lasting impression. And I always tell students that, regardless, that you want to make sure that that document articulates and identifies your skills, and markets you to the fullest potential. And statistically, you only have 60 seconds to convince an employer that you're the best candidate for an opportunity. So it's crucial that that document really hones in on your skills. It really hones in on your experiences and previous opportunities that you may have had, to highlight what contribution that you're able to offer and bring to the table for that next opportunity that you're seeking. So it's a necessity, and especially in a virtual environment, seeking that opportunity to make that impression successful. I always tell students, definitely make an appointment with a career consultant, whether it's at the University of Connecticut School of Business, or with the Center for Career Development, to take that document to the next level. And with technology evolving, I think it's always good to put in perspective, where have we come, as far as resumes go, and who even started resumes? I've always pondered about that, and to give you a little insight about that. But where we are definitely today with technology evolving, as we heard previously with Damon and Sue talking about, leveraging resources in our office, but also even Handshake. Yeah, your resume is a living document on that resource, on that site, and other sites. So you definitely want to make sure that that's reflective of the best quality of work that you are able to produce, to obtain the interest, right, of employers that might be seeking out your talents. So not only is employment changing, how versatile it has become, being virtual for many of us, but how we seek opportunities as well has also evolved and has become more virtual. And I wanted to bring up just the did you know fact about resumes. And actually, this is one that's I've always found really interesting. Is it started with a little, a little place out in Tuscany, in Italy, in 1452, by Leonardo da Vinci. Very famous for being one of the pioneers, setting the ideas of parachutes, tanks, and helicopters, but also in the midst of his some of his creations was also the resume in 1452. So there's a long history, over 500 years ago, of how resumes have sort of evolved, and it truly started back then. And since then, since Leonardo da Vinci, between the 1930s and the 1960s in the U.S., resumes were documents provided on scraps of paper, and they sort of evolved into this institution of articulated documents to show the quality of work that you have produced, to show your history. And it really has shaped and evolved in supporting human resources departments as well, understand better of who those candidates are. And as technology advanced, so has the presentations of the resumes. We had resumes were in the 1980s presented sometimes on VHS. a little known company in 1983 known as Microsoft created Microsoft Word, and Resume Template was launched on that platform. And as time progressed, you heard of probably job search engine websites such as Monster and Career Builder in 1994. And then you also had to, have that resume. But again, technology was still sort of progressing. If you're thinking about the 90s, thinking about even my parents or friends, family members that might have been seeking opportunities in the 90s and the 80s, it was done in your local, your local newspaper or in the Hartford Courant, in the Wall Street Journal. We would open up that newspaper and you would have pages on pages of listed job opportunities. And that's not the case anymore, right? So as technology evolves, again, so does the search process. And so Monster and Career Builder were one of those search engines that really took shape and took flight. And now you've had some industry leaders such as, right, Indeed, LinkedIn, and make a big splash and impact in the search process. So that was launched in 03. Folks started to sort of evolve with having virtual resumes on YouTube. And in 2011, data scientists are leveraging and using resources such as ResScore and other decoded resume features to leverage data analytics and job search in the job search function in order to find candidates. And companies, Fortune 500 employers are using applicant tracking systems as well. So by 2020, here we are today, over 100 million resumes will be sent out via online. So if you think about the US, 300 million people, 1 in 3 folks are sending out their resumes virtually, for opportunities. So that's something to definitely say, wow, how valuable and how important resumes are. They're a major document that you really need to have in order to be successful in your job search. And there's also different types of resumes. We never really talk about this as much, but you definitely want to be aware of them. And just to give you some clarity, the most common and most appreciated resume would definitely be the reverse chronological format resume. But you also have targeted, you have hybrid combination, functional, infographic resume. So someone that might be in the more marketing arena might go more for an infographic resume. You have CVs, curriculum vitae, there's also, with CVs, it's just not as common, right, to see a CV. But again, take that with a grain of salt with what I tell you, because in the UK, for instance, a CV would be your resume. But here in the US, a CV would be something more of a extended resume. A multiple page document might be someone by a faculty member, a research scientist, a physician. Maybe they do publishing and presentations of documents, so of research that they've done. So, they might have a CV, but for the majority of job seekers, the reverse chronological format is what is expected. And actually for a university student, that is what you want to have, is a reverse chronological format style resume. And it's favored by employers. Why? You're able to articulate your, again, work experiences, your leadership qualities, your skill sets, your education, all within one page. And it really is a timeline. That's why it's called a chronological resume. And with that, you always want to be cognizant of, you have to always start with your most recent experience and work your way back to be successful in this document. So again, reverse chronological resume is the document that you want to use. I also want to, make note here that to be successful in the resume development portion, there's a process. It's, you're not going to just sit down and create a resume, at least successfully, and have a great final product that you're going to be happy with. And that development process really starts with researching, thinking about your major as well. What can I do with my major? What are some of the outcomes? What are some of the skills that I'm going to develop in my major? Thinking about jobs that align with that major as well. So you want to do some, again, the research behind the outcome of the final product of this resume before you decide to, hey, let me go ahead and start creating this resume. You should discuss with the career office a little bit more about that, about your major, about your interests, areas of exploration where you may see yourself working, and part of that, our job is also to help and guide you and give you some insight and direction about some of those opportunities and what those careers may actually look like. And you also want to be aware of your VP. What is your value proposition for employers going in? And that's something that we can definitely help you with, making that one-on-one appointment and talking with you about your career aspirations and your goals, as well as some career tracks, following graduation from the university. You definitely also want to collect a list of experiences. So whether it's printing out job descriptions from past employers or most recent employers, whether it's conducting some research online using things like ONET. There is a great job bank of data known as onetonline.org. Definitely check that out. I think that will help you articulate as well as help you in the process of developing action phrase statements within your resume. That's something that you want to use as a resource. And bringing all that together will help you start creating those statements, creating those ideas on paper about your experiences, and having that draft one. And you're going to have multiple drafts. That's okay. This is not something that you're going to sit within 30 minutes and have an outcome for a resume. It's a process. So you might have a first and second and third draft, and the first draft might be the rough plumbing, if you will, of the resume, working out some of the details, making sure that you're within a one-page document, making sure the formatting is okay, the structure, the spacing. Then we'll take a revision of that. We'll look for excessive content, the excessive fat, as I like to call it, within the statements, and cutting those out to make the statements more condensed so they flow nicely. So you don't have run-on, so you don't have orphans, one or two words that take up an entire line. We'll look at the grammar. We'll look at fine-tuning that resume the third time around as well to improve statements, to make them stronger, maybe avoiding repetitive words. Maybe you've used manage multiple times within your statements. So working one-on-one with a career consultant, will be able to identify any of these items and then bringing out the best final product, because going back to that concept, you only have 60 seconds to promote and market yourself to an HR hiring manager. And I always tell students, put yourself in their shoes. They're overworked. They're working, many hours reviewing candidates' resumes, and there might be 400 applicants for a few openings only. You essentially want to spoon feed that information on that resume so it's easy for them to capture the skills, the experiences and education that's most relevant to that position that you're applying to. And that's important. So, like everything else, I always say, in the resume, it should be like a Swiss Army watch. Everything ticks in place. Your dates of employment will be to the far right. Your employers will be to the far left. Your positions associated with that will be to the far left, and it'll be consistent throughout the entire document. So we don't have a snake's line effect where we're searching for words left to right. If we're doing that, again, think about that in perspective. If you're doing that, if your eyes have to go left to right, what are you doing? You're decoding, you're looking for information. But if you spoon feed that information and place it in specific areas on that sheet, then the employers know where to expect and where to find that information. So that's also part of your salesmanship and marketing your document to the fullest potential with employers before we have that final product. So components in the resume, what's actually needed? You need to have a contact, information. You need to have a solid objective. You also will have education. And under education, you may also list things like honors and awards. You'll have another category known as the skills category, work experiences, leadership and associations, volunteering experiences, and sports experience and interests. And again, like everything else, you have semantics, right? So tomato, potato, potato. You are able to adjust these categories. And not all, one size fits all here. Everyone has different experiences. Everyone has different majors. So the resume needs to be tailored to your experiences, first and foremost, at the end of the day. And going forward, even after you have a final product, I always tell students it's so crucial that you tailor the document to what the employer is looking for. The employer always tells you in the job description what they're looking for as far as the skills and requirements for the position. It's a matter of your resume making sure that it meets the needs of that employer. Because again, if we just send off the same document 50 times after we have a final product and it's for 50 different opportunities and all the employers have 50 different expectations, don't expect to get callbacks because you're not meeting the needs of that employer. And that's an important takeaway. At the end of this session, I want you to remember that always, always tailor your document. And if you do that, you'll have tremendous success. All right, moving forward. So contact details, what actually goes into the contact? You need to have your full name at the top of the page. You want to have your mailing address, current or permanent. And again, that's if you're at the university, I would say have your home address and your university of address as well. You can have one or the other. I always tell students, same thing with a phone number. What is the best way to contact you and reach you? So you could be definitely selective on that. Email address is also needed. Use your university email address, your UConn address. And the reason I say that, being a student, this is a depiction of where you are currently now. By using a generic email like at Gmail or Yahoo or at Hotmail, whoever you may, as a provider you may use, at the end of the day, especially the employers that you're working with here at the university, they're seeking to hire UConn students. So it makes sense as far as your marketing goes. You should have your UConn email listed on there. Your LinkedIn public URL. And then the caveat with this is if you don't have a LinkedIn yet, so obviously, then you wouldn't include it. But if it's a work in progress and you feel confident now that, hey, I want to promote and market my LinkedIn page to employers, then include your LinkedIn URL. However, make sure that it's also edited for the LinkedIn URL, that it doesn't have the additional characters following your first and last name. And if you have questions about that, definitely stay tuned for more on LinkedIn, but also schedule an appointment with the career office and we can show you where you can do that on your LinkedIn profile. This is just a quick snapshot of sort of what it should look like, your contact information. It should be ideally centered on the page. Again, these are just the key elements. I don't necessarily believe that we should maximize the page and have all of this spacing. We probably could fine tune this again if this was a draft, 2 or 3 lines max. But these are the details that you would want to capture so you're aware of it. You need to have an objective statement. Now I've seen objective statements multiple ways, sometimes more detailed, sometimes missing information or things that I like to call as a work in progress. And we definitely want to articulate, again, our VP, our value proposition for employers. What do we have to offer? We don't want to just be too generic, to obtain employment. We want to specify as much as we can in the objective statement. So something to the effect of seeking a summer logistical analyst internship position with PepsiCo, utilizing my analytical, collaborative, and problem-solving skills to further the organization's daily operational goals and business objectives. It could be slightly more condensed, but I would say, you don't want to have something that's too vague where it doesn't really identify your VP, your value proposition for an employer. At the end of the day, now, if you're networking with employers, we may not have an objective. If you're applying to, a variety of employers and say you're at a career fair, then I wouldn't say, hey, print out 50 copies of your resume and customize it to each one. You may remove the objective. The objective is optional. It's something that you don't necessarily need to include. But if you're a freshman, if you're a sophomore, and you're seeking an opportunity, then I would want to specify that objective. If you're a senior or junior, we may just entirely remove the objective statement and focus more on the skills and the prior experiences that you already had. Again, this is just a depiction of what an objective should look like. Following the objective, we will also have information on your education. So you want to identify that you're part of the University of Connecticut, your institution, the location, Storrs, Connecticut, Stamford, Connecticut. When are you going to graduate? And it should be your future date. Many times I'll see students put their most recent high school date or current date. We want to put the end date. So it may be May 2024. And so forth. Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Science. So what's your actually degree here? Bachelor of Science, business. Your major would follow below that. And it might be marketing. It might be financial management. It could be accounting. And again, depending if you're a sophomore or freshman, you may also include your high school institution, as well as that high school diploma that you obtained and the date of graduation, along with your GPA. For those now that are, freshmen and it's spring semester, we can also include our overall GPA with the university under our major listed for UConn. And again, it should be in reverse chronological format. So starting with UConn, working your way back to your high school. All right. And if you have any honors and awards, maybe you graduated in the top 10% of your class, maybe you're valedictorian of your class, maybe you were, part of the Alpha Lambda Delta Honors Society now because of your academic achievement, then you also want to include that under a subset category known as honors and awards. All right, so this is just a little bit of detail snapshot. And again, I will give you an end image of what a resume should look like. And then if you do have questions, always feel free to contact us about this as well. The skills, what's included in the skills here? There should be not a subset, but a separate category known as skills. You can create subset categories underneath. These are some examples of some of the subset categories that you can have under the skills category. Computer, social media, software programs, language, certifications, related coursework, emerging academic interests. Maybe you still haven't determined what major you're leaning towards or rather declared, but now you might be leaning towards a certain major because you have that interest. If you're using social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, right? Then you'd want to identify those programs, specific computer programs, any specific software programs related to your industry. Maybe you're an accounting student and you know how to use Peachtree or QuickBooks 2013 or TaxSlayer. You might have a variety of different programs that you're familiar with. Languages. That's also another area of marketability. So if you are fluent in a language, you want to identify obviously that language. If you speak English and Spanish, don't put English on there. It's sort of implied, right? If your resume is in English, then we don't need to capture that. But if you're fluent in Spanish, identify the language of Spanish, and then your level of proficiency would be fluent. If you're just a beginner, that's okay too. You can identify intermediate, you can identify beginner, and you could also identify verbal and written, the level of that proficiency as well. So these are some subset categories I want you to think about. If you have questions about them, let us know. We'll definitely help you kind of fill those subsets in. Again, so this is just an example of how to identify that category. Work experiences. You want to identify the following information. And going back to the idea, I said everything needs to sort of work like a Swiss Army watch. We want to compartmentalize our information on here and be aware of this. So employers, the employer should stand out on your resume. I always encourage students, put those in bold, to differentiate that from actual content, and you'd want to be consistent throughout. So if you're part of a student organization, the same thing would apply. That also would be in bold. You volunteered for an organization, that would be in bold. So that's the consistency throughout. The location, where did you work? If you had multiple locations of employment, then we would create subdates and either subpositions with locations to identify that experience. And we could get into, again, those details working one-on-one, but you also, again, you want to be aware, you should identify the city and state. The dates of employment, a lot of times we'll see things like student might put abbreviations for months, sept, oct, right? Actually provide the full month, April, October, November. And again, reverse chronological format, meaning start with your most recent experience and work your way back. If you're currently there, that would be obviously, through present, and then working your way back with the other employers, if there are some. You want to identify positions. Positions, I always say either underline or italicize them, place them right under the employer. You want to be aware of action phrase statements. You don't want to use the term I in first person here. You want to be aware of, if you're still employed there, then it should be present tense. If you're no longer there, it'll be past tense format. You want to utilize a list of action verbs. We definitely have that listed online. Happy to show you where and also provide you a copy of that to help you build action phrase statements. Okay. And then, Be aware of whether or not you're using multiple action verbs, like, developed over and over, and you have that repetition. We would definitely want to address that and be more versatile and use synonyms to maybe adjust those action verbs. Okay, leadership and association. So if you're part of a student organization or club, identify the organization, identify the institution, and you would list, Finance Society, comma, UConn or University of Connecticut, comma, your position. If you're just a member, then you would identify member. The dates would go to the far right, same thing, month, year to month, year. And if you're still involved, it'll be present. You can create an action phrase statement depending on the work experiences you already have. But if you do have room, I always encourage students to also incorporate that within the leadership and associations category. Okay, just going to move along here so you're aware. And again, questions, always let us know. Volunteer experience is another area for room for development on the resume. And I encourage students, especially if it's related to your career, as an example, an accounting student. Maybe you'll be part of the VITA program, the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program run through United Way. Guess what? It's two birds with one stone. You're actually gaining accounting experience, helping people file their taxes that are earning less than $54,000 a year. At the same time, you're volunteering and helping out in the community. Fantastic way to market and promote yourself for an employer. Be aware of that, for volunteering experiences, where it could also, not only you're doing a good thing for the community, but you're also building skills that are transferable to industry. Over 40%, 45% of employers find volunteering experience, okay, this is from LinkedIn, volunteering experience just as valuable as work experience. So definitely, when you have a chance, volunteer. It's only going to help build credibility for you with employers, and it also speaks about your character. Today, employers just don't want to know, hey, is this person able to do the job? They also want to know who you are as an individual. Are you someone that's going to fit in with our company culture within our organization? And again, it speaks volumes about you. You should be aware that many employers that work with the University of Connecticut, Fortune 500 companies especially, dedicate time for employees to give back to the community. And that's tremendous value to add to your resume. If you have limited experience in work and maybe volunteering, well, think about sports experience at the high school level as well. Maybe you're a team captain, maybe you're just, again, a team member, but identify the sport, the club, the organization you're a part of, the institution, which, might be, Stanford High School or Bridgeport, Bridgeport High School rather. And then also the dates associated with that and your position below, and additional points to support that value proposition that you have to offer. And you want to think about skills. What skills did you actually develop being part of those clubs and student groups? Maybe, collaborative skill sets, working with a team, motivating others, communication skills. There's so many things that you have added value from those experiences that are transferable to an internship opportunity. So I want you to be aware of that. And then you have what I call filler at the end. It's, for me, it's not that it's the least valuable, but it's definitely a conversational starter between you and employers. What are your interests? And you want to be aware of your career aspirations and then trying to tie in those interests as well. So if you want to be a financial analyst, well, maybe it's stock trading. Maybe it's using a simulator like Wall Street, junior stock simulator, or reading the Wall Street Journal, right? And identifying that. So be cognizant of that as well, and identifying a list of interests. Key tips and strategies to remember. Page margins. You have 1/2 inch to 1 inch margins throughout the entire document. Your name should be between a 12-point font and 16 font. And the reason I say that is it's your brand. It's like picking up the Wall Street Journal. It's you that we're emphasizing. So you want to make sure that that name stands out in the document. Your headings, 10 to 12-point font. Use caps and bold. Your content should be smaller, just like an article that you're reading. The headline of that article is going to stand out. Well, guess what? Your categories, objective, education, work experience, that also should stand out. So your content might be 10 to 12-point font. Be aware of serif sans and serif fonts. Serif fonts are actually easier to read. So those would be fonts like Times New Roman and Garamond. It's just the strokes of the characters. And you could do an easy comparison, compare Arial, for instance. That's one that is not a serif font. And the reason, I want to differentiate some of these so you are aware of it. Many students might even have an Arial, but the words get sort of lost on the document. It just gets distorted. So by using Times New Roman, it's much easier on the eyes. And that's, again, just because of the characters, the way the strokes are on the lettering. It's more distinctive. Perfect. All right. So moving right along here, this is sort of a final product of what a resume would look like. Again, I encourage you guys to schedule a time to meet with us. Our goal is to make sure that you're successful in your career search, whether it's at the internship phase or whether it's looking for full-time employment. Your success in taking that resume to the next level really starts with the office here. You're simply just one click away to securing that future opportunity. I want you to invest in yourself. Start with the job search, obviously, and finish with a career. This is your best return on your investment at the end of the day from graduating from the University of Connecticut and working with a career consultant to plan your future ahead. We are available for you guys Monday through Friday from 7 a.m., as early as 7 a.m. and as late as 8 p.m. Take advantage of those times to really maximize your return on your investment. Reach us at recruit@business.uconn.edu or visit us on the web at career.business.uconn.edu. I want to again thank everyone, including my colleagues, for joining me today on this call. We do have an event coming up again at 2 o'clock. So just a half hour from now. If you are definitely interested, I would encourage you to join. It's Business Speak, how to engage with potential employers through the recruiting process at 2 p.m. So please, again, join us. We'll see you then. And thank you so much for joining. Take care now.